Fundamentally, building safe AI is not that different from building safe software and safe solutions in general. The same questions apply. How you go about answering those questions is a little bit different.
Welcome to the Chief AI Officer of CAIO Podcast, where AI mentor Sanjay Puri talks with the leaders shaping tomorrow's technology. We explore their stories, challenges, and big ideas driving change. So if you're curious about how AI is transforming work, business, and everyday life, this is your front row seat to the future. Today, we have Madalina Tanasie, a visionary technologist and data steward who now leads engineering, architecture, security, and scale at Collibra. Collibra is redefining how enterprises trust, manage, and scale data.
I'm your host, Sanjay Puri, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Madalina Tanasie. She's the Chief Technology Officer at Collibra. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast. We have a global audience of your peers, AI enthusiasts, AI entrepreneurs, policy leaders, and for them, just give us a little bit about your background, how you got to this position, and also just a little bit about Collibra too.
Yeah, happy to be here. So I'm the CTO at Collibra. We're a data and AI governance solution. We've been around for 15 years. We've started in data governance, and of course, with all things AI, it feels like data governance is having a new comeback. Um, how I got here, I spent about 11 years in a highly regulated industry before Collibra in life sciences at Medidata Solutions, and got the full appreciation of the importance of data, but also of safety and rigor. And when Collibra was really going through exponential growth in 2019, they were ready to move from being startup-y and very piratey, for lack of a better word, and going towards being enterprise and being a lot more focused on structure and safety and scale. And that's how I got here. I've been around at Collibra for a little bit over 5 years.
Basically, you know, board strategy. What outcomes and risk controls you think resonate most for boards? What metrics actually earn continued investment for boards? Because a lot of your peers have to either go to a board or their C-level exec when they're setting up a project. So, what generally works for them?
A lot of the board conversation and executive conversations in the last few years have been around the potential of AI and really incorporating AI in the operations and driving efficiencies, but also incorporating AI in the products that we do. And it feels like recently the conversation has shifted from um, outcomes and potential to doing it safely, doing it responsibly. I think it's always about finding the balance. If you're too focused on safety and testing, you're missing the boat. You're not going to be the first to market. You're not really going to materialize the potential, but also you can't just go um, and use it without really thinking about the consequences. So I feel like it's always a balance between outcomes, and I can cover two use cases. One is for internal operations. Obviously, and I've been to a lot of events and conferences in our own um, executive team and board meeting that is about what can you do with AI. Why are you not using AI for engineering to expedite? Why are you not using AI for operations? Why are you not using AI for support? And there are these use cases that are really proven to be very suited for AI. And a lot of it is around, hey, how much use AI? What's the right mix between AI and humans to do it safely? But also, and we at Collibra, we are working with really large companies, most of them regulated. How do you do it safely? How do you ensure that you don't put, data FedRAMP customers in a tool that is not FedRAMP certified? How do you ensure that you're transparent with the customers that there is a new sub-processor there and they're data or metadata might exit Collibra's premises. So there is always this mix of move fast and move safe.
So there is this balance of moving fast, moving safe. You used the term FedRAMP for our listeners who probably are not in the US. FedRAMP is a certification for the federal to do work for the US federal government. So one of the things a lot of your peers ask is there are so many use cases when you talk about large companies, literally thousands of use cases. How do you pick the right use cases to make sure you get some early wins that you can show to your board or to your CFO or your C-level exec? So how does one pick the right use case?
I would say that if someone is early on their AI journey, they should start with internal use cases because you're going to make mistakes, you're going to have some gotchas, and you probably want to choose something that is safe and low hanging fruit. And I would say that the two use cases that are relatively low hanging fruit are really incorporating code generating tools in your process if you're writing code and automations of operations, of course, with guardrails, with human in the middle, and start there to learn about AI and get comfortable with AI, stay close to your GRC department, legal department to ensure that you understand what those tools do, if your data is going to be used, I would say your premise and for training the model. When you're ready to move to an external use case, also start with something that is low hanging fruit and relatively low risk, like incorporating self-service into your support operations and deflection and chatbot agents. There is a lot of risk, reputational risk there. I personally find a lot of these chatbots that are supporting me with various tools that I'm using quite frustrating. So I think if you're going to do it right, do it better. But I would start there.
So I think the message Madalina is giving to her peers and others is start internal, probably with code generation or IDE is what she's saying. That might be one option. Every organization is not focused on that, but what could be to support internal operations, whether it's internal operations, internal support, I think is what you're saying is, and be careful about reputational risk when you're doing external stuff like chatbots, etc., is what you're saying, right, Madeleine?
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who have not software companies like we are, another use case that we've implemented early on and we found very valuable is knowledge management. Every company, big or small, over their history have probably accumulated a lot of information in structured and unstructured data sources. There is a little bit of like, hey, I have these questions. I have three different answers. Which one is the right answer? We found that assistants for knowledge management are actually pretty good.
What you're saying is for your internal data, have a customized LLM or whatever you want to call it, ingest your data, and then turn it into a real knowledge management solution. And that's also a great use case, right, Madalena?
I think RAG technologies are pretty good, and you can take any of the models out there, and every company has their preferred vendor and LLM, and augment it with your data and start playing with it. And I guess that's also a way to get your employees to understand the potential of AI and start thinking creatively about what are the internal or external use cases.
How do you look at it from an ROI perspective? What advice would you give to someone who's starting out or someone who's implementing AI? How should they look at ROI?
I think it's important to be aware of the hype and recognize that a lot of what's out there in the news is not necessarily applicable to um, a normal company that is not one of those big companies that are using their own models and they train those models on their own data. And, we've all seen in the news is like, okay, now I can start a company with just two people and I'm going to have a product in the market in like 4 days using this combination of tools. Sure, maybe. If you're a startup and you're working with humans out there that are going to play with your product, maybe you get there. But once you really start looking at what do you need to do to be a serious vendor, and let's let's start with SOC certification, right? Like maybe not other certification, but everyone to kind of bridge into a business with another business, you probably need to be SOC certified. Things get complicated. So I think it's important to educate your board and your executive team on the difference between a prototype and something that is production ready, and the risks involved, and also the work involved in getting things ready. Now, on return of investment, um, using AI for assistance used to be cheap. A lot of the big players out there gave AI solution access to the LLMs virtually for free or for very little cost. That's also changing. So as our investors, board members, executive team kind of got used, it's like, hey, it's cheap, it's fast. It's important to level set with them and say, it used to be cheap and it used to be fast, but now everybody's thinking about how to monetize their AI solution, including the big players. And it's getting a little bit more expensive. So you have to be very intentional about what is the value that you're going to get, and be realistic about what's the um, outcome and the efficiency that you have there. Pilot it and invest when you demonstrate, and do it with the full understanding of what's realistic in terms of how much you're going to optimize for your use case. That is not exactly the use case that the model was trained on, and for the cost as the cost is evolving.
So, Madalina, if let's say one of your peers is looking at this, they have a choice of internal, which is maybe some cost savings, external, maybe increase of revenue, or strategic, maybe market differentiation. What do you suggest would be a good pathway for them?
I think it depends.
Mhm.
Honestly, I would say a combination of the three. If you have data that is unique to you, it could be a strategic differentiator to use that data and expose it and leverage it with LLM. That definitely is a big strategic differentiator. I know for companies that have unique data that hasn't been already used for training those models. In product, I think there is the expectation right now that you have automation and assistance and copilots in the product, and it's got easier to do so. There is a lot of there are lots of solutions out there. Technology has evolved as such that is not so involved to add assistants and agents in your code for just automation and getting your users to be more efficient, to find their way into your products easier for um, very small operations. Like, if you're a bank and someone needs to check their balance, or they have some very basic questions, um, including that in your product could be good. So I would say a combination of the three, and explore all of them, but do it safely.
What is your advice? How can chief AI officers move from, promising pilots to durable governed products, which are used by literally tens of thousands of employees or customers? I mean, having pilots is one thing, and then having an actual uh, product itself is a whole different thing that's going to be used by tens of thousands or millions of clients. What suggestions do you have?
There are a few frameworks out there that are giving companies guidance on how to go about implementing AI safely. And I think that those are very good starting points. There is the EU Act, AI Act. There is the new ISO standard. Those are good frameworks. And fundamentally, building safe AI is not that different from building safe software and safe solutions in general. The same questions apply. How you go about answering those questions is a little bit different. So I would definitely encourage companies that are looking at implementing AI internally and externally, but surely if externally, to consider an AI governance process. It does need to be very involved, but at least at a minimum, keep track of all the use cases that are starting to pop up in the company, internal, external. Make sure you understand what is the purpose of an AI solution, what data is going to make it into that agent or assistant or implementation, how you're going to go about ensuring access control, because while the model might have access to a lot of data, you don't want necessarily that every single user of that use case to see all the data. So there are some very basic concepts that apply, that are general, that exist, that have to be applied to AI use cases to ensure you do it safely.
Madalena, what is the most, in your view, for your peers, what's the most overlooked prerequisite for trustworthy AI in enterprises?
Data.
Okay.
Garbage in, garbage out. And I'm sure I'm not saying anything new here, but if your data is not clean, is messy, I think it's worth remembering that fundamentally by design, LLMs are hallucinating, and that those hallucinations are matching reality if the data is good, if there is a lot of repetition. But I think it's important to remember that by design, um, it's LLMs are about being coherent and producing something that sounds real, not necessarily about accuracy. And there's been a lot of improvement in that space in the last few years, but that's still the fundamental design out there. And if your data is not clean, if your traceability of the data is not clear, if your training is not good, your model is not going to be good.
What are your thoughts for synthetic data? Companies are looking at it, especially healthcare companies, because of the issue of governance, etc., are starting to look at synthetic data, etc. What do you think about that?
I think there is a lot of potential there to advance AI and continue the movement as we are running out of real human-generated data. I think in life sciences, in particular, there is a lot of real data that can be anonymized and used to create high-value synthetic data. But there is also this philosophical argument out there that we should probably be aware of, like, models are going to have bugs, are going to have biases, are going to have limitations. And if you're going to use a model that has a bug, whatever that bug is, to generate synthetic data, then you're going to use that synthetic data, and then you're going to generate more synthetic data. There is a risk there that we will reinforce a bias, or that we will miss a nuance that is deeply human, that we will forget over time. So I think depending on what we are using synthetic data and how we go about generating that synthetic data, it could be good. A lot of the innovation technology starts as something good, but it could also have consequences that we'll realize only over time. Definitely, I think we need it, and I think we need to look at synthetic data to continue to advance. Yeah.
What signals or dashboards do you think your peers should rely on if they have to catch these biases or hallucination or privacy leaks early on?
I think it's difficult to give a straight answer there because the tools are ever evolving. I'm trying to stay up to speed on what's out there in terms of solutions and tools for AI. But one thing that I would say, I think it has to be a combination of human testing, maybe third-party red teaming testing. We are currently evaluating, and we're seeing some promising results with Prompt Food. That is a solution that has an open source version as well as a commercial version for incorporating ongoing testing into your CI/CD pipeline and constantly validating a number of issues that could go wrong or could surface in AI. So um, I don't have a good answer there. We are, at least at Collibra, being a European company and AI governance solution, have a lot of guardrails and checks there. But realistically and honestly, it's a combination of human, third party, recurring assessment, and pipeline checks.
A lot of our listeners are AI officers, CIOs of global companies. They are dealing with evolving regulations. Just let's take the EU AI Act to the ISO, IEC. In the US, we don't have a federal law, but a lot of states are putting up with those kind of rules, whether it's Colorado, Connecticut, California, and even Texas and others. How can you and they prepare with all these different regulations and always ask legal red lines from a governance standpoint? Any suggestions for them?
In the best case, and I'm aware that not a lot of companies necessarily afford that, you have a department or a third party who keeps an eye on all this regulation and flags with you when there is any meaningful change. It is my observation that a lot of the new regulations are really just combining elements from existing regulations. And I think just applying common sense and thinking about what could go wrong and checking with your legal or GRC department when in doubt is probably good. We tend in this chase for being the first or not missing opportunities to think of legal as the red tape or a stopper. But I would say, if in doubt, ask legal, especially if you're going to introduce a new tool that is processing sensitive data, or you're going to introduce a new data source that has sensitive data.
Madalina, one of the questions that came in for you was that there are, just like with changes in regulations, we have so many new models that are coming out from hyperscalers and open source communities. Whether it's GPT-5, it's Llama, it's and Claude, etc. How can they decide between different foundation models, SLMs, fine tunes, etc.? Any suggestions, guidance for them? How do you do it?
It's a difficult question. I think it's important to recognize that each one of the big models out there are good at something, and maybe not as good at something else, but also the benchmarks and how good they are at specific tasks, it's ever evolving. I would say start with 2, 3 of the big foundational models, um, test them for your use case, figure out which one is good. Ideally, implement um, a layer of framework between your code or your use case in these models that allows you to really plug and play those models and constantly upgrade versions without having to rework the implementation. But stay focused. Ultimately, the job is not to constantly change to the latest model that is out there. Every month, those benchmarks evolve, and now is this, then is that. Start with 2, 3, test them. If there is a big breakthrough in another one and you have an AI platform or a framework that interfaces between you and the models, sure, go and add another one. But stay focused on what you're trying to do with AI and recognize that at least when it comes to the big players, they will catch up. By the time you change, chances are that the model that you had in place is good enough or back on the list.
Should they be looking at the leaderboard, because the leaderboard keeps changing? Who is number one today keeps changing. But what you're saying is, start with a few and then keep working based on your needs, right, Madalena?
Don't just react at every update of the leaderboard. Like if you see that someone is making leaps and bounds and is constantly ahead of everyone else on a use case that is relevant to what you're trying to do, and that has stabilized and the distance is increasing, then maybe, if you're already using that model, good for you. If you're using other models and you see them falling behind over a number of iterations, you might want to evaluate. I would say don't react to every change in that leaderboard. Stay close to it to understand how the market is moving and performance is moving. Ultimately, again, focus on your data, focus on your the value that you can provide to your customers and to your organization.
Firstly, let's start with what is your definition of agentic AI? Everybody I bring on has a different definition. So I want to hear what is your definition, and then we can delve just a little bit. I want to talk about the governance and the opportunity that agentic AI presents to us.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about the difference between assistants and agents, just for oversimplification, assistants are helping a human do their job, so there is always human in the middle. Agents are taking action. They look at data, they execute a workflow that is predefined. They have some flexibility in how they go about making a decision, and when the decision is made, they take action. So from that angle, there is a pretty big difference between assistants and agents because um, agents are more powerful but are also more dangerous.
So let's just talk a little bit about the positive and then we'll talk about the negatives. What opportunities do you see for AI agents across enterprises?
I think the biggest opportunity is really automating tedious, low risk, low stake workflows that exist in every single organization. And, just cutting through the red tape, producing documents, routing for approvals. There is just so much out there. And, we're just recently discussing about a use case, and sometimes it feels like magic. Like it's think about the prospect, and you're engaging with the prospect, and you're trying to understand what they want to do and how your product or solution can help them, and give them a quote so they can buy. There are so many people involved, so many tools involved, so many systems involved, and this is an example where you could really implement an agentic solution that looks at all the recordings and the meeting notes from the conversation with the customer, matches their problem with your solution, proposes, hey, you should buy this, builds a code, routes it for approval. Um, you can go from something that takes weeks to something that takes hours. Big opportunity out there.
Who is responsible for these agents? Is it HR? Is it business leaders? Who is driving these agents? Because some people say these are digital work. These are digital employees in many cases.
It will take some time for this to stabilize. Every company is starting somewhere. If you're a technology company, chances are that the exploration started in your engineering and your R&D department. In some other companies, it starts with IT. As you're looking to automate a lot of employee workflows and drive efficiencies, an argument can be made that once you've added a lot of agents, it's difficult to make the distinction between, hey, what's done by human, what's done by agent, how do you continue to be compliant with certifications that you have, and how do you track that a decision made by an agent is as good and aligned with goals and ethics as a human. So it could be under HR. Who knows? We speak with our customers all the time, and sometimes is in IT, and sometimes there is a chief data officer, sometimes is a chief AI officer, sometimes it's with HR. I think time will tell where this will land as these agents get adopted in various places. When agents make decisions and take action, I think agent is a good name for it, yeah. Because it reminds us that they make decisions and take actions. They are not just um, providing you with information that helps you make a decision or take action. They actually do that.
They actually act. So, what could be potential downside or challenges for something like this? You work a lot in governance. So, are there governance issues with agentic AI or agents?
There is always something in the news about an agent that did something they shouldn't be doing because, there was an access control issue, and suddenly something that was supposed to be read-only deleted a whole database, or there was an answer that a person got that included data that they shouldn't have had access to, or, money transfers, whatnot. Definitely, there are governance issues. The one that I find, as a technologist, the most fascinating is what's going to happen when we have agents in so many parts of the business that we kind of don't know what is done by human and what is done by agent. And, the risk of, being a little bit limiting for the audience, imagine software development, right? We now have agents that write code. We have agents that review code. We have agents that deploy code. We have agents that monitor code. Who knows what happened? How? And all these steps are so highly regulated. If you're thinking about development life cycle, how are you going to go there and say, okay, so if it was written by AI, reviewed by AI, tested by AI, deployed by AI, at what point um, you can guarantee that all those checks have been done, and how? I find this excitement and proliferation of agents both thrilling and terrifying. And I think it's important to keep track of what we're trying to do and ensure you ask yourself important question. Is it safe? Is it aligned with the goals and the objectives?
A lot of opportunities, but one has to be careful. Madalina, we had a chief AI officer of one of the largest cyber companies in the world, and he mentioned one of his big fears was rogue agents, which means you have not from externally, but maybe a disgruntled employee unleashes a rogue agent, so to speak. What do you think? Are there challenges around that? What could be governance models around that?
I think it's really important to have a solution that keeps track of the questions and the answers and flags everything that could be dangerous or malicious or impact privacy and security. Definitely a lot to be done there, and a valid legitimate risk. And rogue employees or malicious internal agents is always a concern, and AI is just increasing the risk there. But there is also the reality that often with these models, we don't know how they were tuned, what internal goals they were given. And there is a lot out there in terms of um, twisted objectives to please you, to get you to like something, to achieve a goal, even if it means circumventing the legalities and the ethics. So definitely a lot of work to be done there. But I would say it's kind of at the intersection of governance and observability, and more in the observability space.
Agent or assistant, which you kind of talked about.
Agent.
Okay, centralized or federated?
Federated.
Would you pick RAG or fine tune?
RAG.
Open or closed source?
Open source.
Safety or speed?
Safety.
Do you think synthetic data, which we discussed, is useful or overhyped?
Both.
Open source or closed source?
Open source.
Open source. Awesome. Madalina, this has been fantastic. Really, really appreciate it. And for our listeners, whether you are a current Chief AI Officer, an aspiring AI leader, or a technologist building AI systems, the roadmap is demanding but achievable. Focus, as Madalina said, on technical excellence as well as governance discipline, and build cross-functional teams that can bridge the gap between innovation and compliance. And remember, in the world where AI capabilities are, rapidly democratizing, your competitive advantage lies not in the models you can access, but how effectively you can deploy them to create lasting value. And until next time, this is the Chief AI Officer podcast, where we explore the intersection of AI and leadership. Please, if you like the podcast, do like it and forward it. Madalina, thank you so much. This was really helpful. We covered such a vast range of topics, RAG, agents, governance, you name it, and a lot more to cover. And we'll have you on again for that. Thank you so much.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Chief AI Officer podcast with Sanjay Puri. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought, and share it with someone curious about the future of AI. Join us every Friday right here on the CAIO Podcast as we share more stories and insights from the leaders shaping what's ahead.